Robbing the tigers. A long time ago, in one of the dense forests that abounded in northern India, there were a number of man eating tigers. How they became to be man eaters, no one ever knew. Practically every day, the tigers would pounce on some unfortunate man or woman, and after devouring the bodies, they would collect whatever jewelry and money the victims possessed and carry it off to swell their ever growing pile of treasure. Now, in a nearby village, there was a barber who dreamt and schemed of ways to get his hands on some of the tiger's treasure. Then he could live a life of ease and luxury. He thought that if he went into the forest early in the morning, he would find the tigers asleep. Then he could quietly cut their throats and help himself to their treasure. So, bright and early one morning, the barber set off into the forest with his razors nicely sharpened. He had not gone far when suddenly an enormous tiger confronted him. Quickly gathering his wits, the barber spoke to the tiger in a gentle voice. Do not be afraid of me. I am your friend. All I want is to shave off your whiskers, which the king needs to prepare some medicine for his sick daughter. The tiger looked puzzled at such a request, and the barber, now full of courage, took out one of his razors. Just let me shave off your whiskers, and the king will give me a big reward, out of which I will buy a whole bag of sweets. Still perplexed, the tiger shook its mighty head. What you ask is impossible. It is considered a disgrace for a tiger to be robbed of his whiskers. Death would be preferable. But I will tell you what I will do. Leave my whiskers alone, and I will pay you whatever reward the king has promised. In that case, I shall have to shave another tiger, the barber said. Now, the king promised me 100 gold pieces, and I will not take less from you. The tiger, without arguing, took the barber to his cave and told him to take 100 gold pieces from the huge heap of gold and jewels that were piled at the back of the cave. The barber hurried home with his treasure, and that evening, as he sat counting his gold and licking his lips at all the wonderful things he would buy, his friend the woodcutter came into the hut. The woodcutter's eyes nearly popped out with astonishment at the sight of so much gold. Am I dreaming? He blurted out. Or did you dress the hair of the goddess of wealth to come by so much gold? Neither, replied the barber with a broad grin. I merely threatened to shave a tiger, and he willingly paid me all this gold not to. At first, the woodcutter would not believe such a tall story, but when the barber told him all that had happened, the woodcutter went home full of ideas on how he too could hoodwink a tiger. At the crack of the dawn, the woodcutter was off into the forest with his big axe. He soon met a tiger who eyed him suspiciously. How lucky I am to meet you, the woodcutter said, waving his axe. But not very lucky for you, for the king has promised me a big reward for a fine tiger skin to adorn his palace. This did not seem to make the tiger very happy. Wait a minute, pleaded the tiger. My skin is valuable to me. I will give you double what the king has promised. Then we shall both be happy. The woodcutter, like the barber, went to the tiger's cave and jubilantly carried home a large pile of gold pieces. That evening, the woodcutter and the barber spent hours boasting to each other how easily they had acquired so much wealth. Then the barber had a brilliant idea. We are obviously clever men, he said. So, if we both go into the forest, surely together we shall be able to devise the means of getting all the tiger's treasure. At first, the woodcutter thought this was tempting fate too much, but then at the thought of untold riches, he let himself be persuaded. So, the next morning, our two friends went to the forest, and after walking for some time, they were surprised and a little scared to hear the growlings of what must be a number of tigers. Not being all that brave, they quickly climbed a high tree. From their lofty perch, they could see in a nearby glade no less than 50 tigers sitting around in a circle, apparently listening to one young tiger standing in the center. Listening carefully, they could make out that the young tiger was grumbling in no uncertain terms on the waste of time and effort in stalking solitary villagers when they could all make a concerted raid on the village and devour all the inhabitants. No sooner had this tiger finished speaking when an old grizzled tiger stood up and gave the young tiger a resounding cuff on the head with his huge paw. Stop talking nonsense, he roared. If we descend on the village and kill all the people in one fell swoop, what do we eat next week and the next week after? Far better to kill the villagers one by one, then we shall never know the pangs of starvation. All the other tigers seemed to agree with this advice, for the meeting broke up and most of the tigers came trooping towards the tree in which our friends were hiding. The poor woodcutter was so alarmed at the sight of so many tigers coming nearer and nearer. He tried to climb higher up the tree but was so scared he slipped and, with a tremendous crash of broken branches, landed with an earth shaking thud on the ground. The barber quick to take advantage of the situation, shouted, "Catch them all, brother! Do not let one get away." The tigers, startled by the crashing branches and the barbers shouting, dashed off in all directions. With the tigers out of the way, our two friends soon found the tigers' caves. Quickly, bundling all the treasure they could carry, they made tracks for home as fast as their legs could carry them. Needless to say, the woodcutter and the barber were now rich beyond care. No longer did they have to work but enjoyed living like kings and boasting to anyone who cared to listen of their gallant adventures among the tigers. Thank you for listening.